Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning and welcome to Live Natural, Live Well. This is your host, Heather Lounsbury. Thanks so much for joining me today. In just a moment, I'm going to be bringing on Fabien Cousteau, the grandson of the great Jacques Cousteau, and he's definitely following in his footsteps and protecting our oceans and raising awareness. If you want to call in with any questions for Fabien, it's 347-884-9533. 347-884-9533. Let me go ahead and bring him on the line. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Finally, we connect.
I know. There was some cross in the stars or something that kept us from doing this, but here we are.
It's been a long and arduous process and well worth it.
Oh, thank you. Well, I hope you think that way at the end of our time together here.
Absolutely.
And I know you're busy, so thanks again. Let's start off with you telling my listeners what you are up to. I know you have a million projects going on, and film and nonprofits, and wherever you'd like to start.
Well said. Actually, I'm having a hard time figuring out where to start, but there are a few things going on. Where should we start? How about expeditions for starters? As you might be familiar with our family, I'm not going to bore you with the past details, but we're currently in the midst of a series for public broadcasting, or PBS, called Ocean Adventures, and by we, I mean my father, my sister, and I, along with the Ocean Future Society team. There are a few hours already on television, some specials including the America's Underwater Treasures and Return to the Amazon and Call of the Killer Whale and such, and that's keeping us quite busy. Along with this, I have some of my own film projects on the side that I'm working on currently in pre-production for big screen and such. Aside from that, I love being, of course, a voice for the oceans and being able to share our experiences and our adventures with the world. But as those adventures progress, it probably comes to no surprise, listeners, that our ocean planet isn't all that healthy sometimes. And more often than not, we encounter signs of human impact thousands of miles where human beings are. So with that in mind, it's raised a question in my mind of what do I do as a citizen of the planet beyond just relaying the information. And last year, in honor of a gentleman who's inspired hundreds of millions of people around the world, namely my grandfather, Jacques Cousteau, I decided to launch a nonprofit initiative called Plant a Fish to educate, empower, and restore different places around the world with the help of local communities. And that has taken up quite a bit of my time recently, along with all the usual book writings and speeches and all that sort of thing. So that's a nutshell. That's a summary of what's going on.
Wow. So I don't even know. I know we had a pre-interview, but it's like, okay, what do I ask you about? But I think we should start with Plant a Fish, because that's your nonprofit and your passion project, and that's going to help raise more awareness on how people can get involved and have an impact themselves. So let's go into specifics about Plant a Fish.
Okay. Well, Plant a Fish, it's quite simple. Like I said, is a platform to engage local communities to get wet, to get dirty, to roll up their sleeves and start taking care of their aquatic backyard in a fun and impassioning way. We've lost almost 60% of the world's total fish stocks since the late 1950s. In many places, we've lost a lot of coral reefs. We have cut down 35% of the Caribbean's mangroves. We have managed to wipe out entire oyster beds around the world, so much so that wild oyster populations are in danger of going extinct. So with all those things and many more in mind, I thought, well, every time someone asks me what can I do, I wanted to give them an answer that goes beyond just saying, well, you should carry around a seafood watch card, which is very important, but that's just one action. Or, you should tell your tribe about what's going on out there via social media or what have you. That's another potential answer. But all those things are things that the average person can do and find out on their own. But I wanted to be able to have a solution that's a little bit more proactive, something that was triggered in my mind by disasters such as the Gulf oil spill last year, and millions of people around the world wanted to help with that, and yet there were very few outlets that they could really truly be actively involved in to help with the cleanup of that oil spill. And that just haunted me, and it just stuck in my mind that we really all need to be part of the solution. We're all part of the problem, as we know. It's all about our bad habits and curtailing those, but we need to be part of that solution as much as possible. And whether that's sending in that $20 or whether it's literally getting wet and dirty and planting mangroves or reseeding coral reefs or being part of a release of sea turtle hatchlings, and so on and so forth. It's all part of that empowerment. So we've started a set of initiatives. One of them in El Salvador with sea turtles, since I talked about that last. That's empowering local communities, most notably tortugueros, who are the folks who normally collect sea turtle eggs for consumption. And we've engaged them in collecting those sea turtle eggs for restoration instead.
Oh, great.
We've done that also with regard to oyster reefs, for example, in the Hudson River. We've been hand in hand with a local high school called the New York Harbor School, in which we've taken the kids that are there and had them become the stewards of the oyster reefs in the Hudson River. So they're replanting oysters in the Hudson River. Or down in Florida, we're replanting mangroves through high schools and middle schools and even lower schools, and engage those folks. And we are about to launch a coral restoration program in the Florida Keys, where we take folks who have a dive certification and who have an interest in being local divers that will be able to go on a regular basis and not only take care of the coral nursery, but also take care of the corals that have been replanted in areas where the reefs have been stressed. And very much akin to gardening, in a sense.
Right.
Hence why I called it Plant a Fish. I mean, we plant trees all over the world in order to try and restore those habitats. Why aren't we planting fish? Why does restoration stop at the waterline? And that's where it all started.
Well, and I think so many people are disconnected to our oceans and our water supply that we don't even think about that. It's more like, oh, our air is dirty or our food's contaminated, but we forget that so much of life on Earth depends on our oceans.
Oh, absolutely, and you hit the nail right on the head. At the end of the day, we're it's not about saving that whale. It's not about saving that forest, because as altruistic and wonderful as that is, and that certainly is the payoff, it's about saving ourselves. We are inextricably linked to this planet. Whether it's like you said, fruit that's tainted, or whether it's the proverbial fish on our plate, if that nutrition isn't clean and healthy, then we don't have a chance to survive. A healthy oceans is a healthy people.
Right.
When you're skiing 1,000 miles away on top of a mountain, 1,000 miles from the oceans, you're skiing on the oceans. Water connects everything, and eventually, water is the conduit that brings everything to the great giant basin that the oceans are. And whether it's flushing pollutants and chemicals down our drains or on our lawns, or fertilizers, or whether it's taking too much from the oceans, we all end up paying the price at the end of the day. So it really behooves us to have a healthy oceans, to have a healthy people. If we think about it, our daily food intake, about 70% of it is beholden directly or indirectly to the health of the oceans. And by that I mean whether it's the proverbial fish on the plate or the ice cream in our freezer, which has fixers which are derived from kelp, or whether it's the fertilizers that we use in our industries to grow grains and such, which a lot of times have seafood or sea life or fish meal, more specifically, mixed into it. We really need to watch what's going on with the health of the oceans. No better example, of course, as the Gulf spill or the Exxon Valdez or many other spills that happen every single day on our planet.
Yeah, and I've been asked this question a lot with what's happened in Japan, how that's going to affect food sources from Japan with the nuclear issue. How that's going to, because a lot of my patients are macrobiotic. It's like, how am I going to get my seaweed anymore? All that stuff comes from Japan, and it's all interconnected.
It really is. I mean, and these are things we have to pay attention to. I mean, our greatest enemy is ignorance or indifference.
Right.
Once people know, we can then address these various issues, including, the nuclear disaster in Japan. It's obvious that it's a much greater problem than the press releases that are brought out to the press media. But we've painted ourselves in a corner, and we need to get ourselves out of it. I'm a firm proponent of the fact that human beings, when pressed to task, can create miracles in a short amount of time. We've done it before on many other levels, so we're now at a point where we need to do that with the health of our water planet.
Oh, absolutely, and I'm glad you're so hopeful, because what's going on in Japan right now is making me a little bit cynical, but I'm trying to get that hope up. So thank you for that reminder.
Well, it's very easy to lose hope and get lost in the chatter of all the things that are going on around the world, and the ones that, especially the things that are going on beyond our grasp, beyond our immediate borders, the most frustrating because they're out of immediate reach for us to do something about. Of course, we can send people over to help fix the problem, but if we just started with our own aquatic backyard and became the leaders, so to speak, of the world, showing the way, then we've already done a lot more than we're doing right now, and we're a long way further down the path of being good stewards of our planet. It's very easy to point fingers. It's very easy to throw up our arms. It's very easy to use those excuses to not do something. Right. And that's something we have to remember, because if we go down that path, we are certainly not going to like what we see. No.
Oh, and we're already there. I'm friends with a geologist, and I talked to her yesterday about the fact that our oceans, them getting warmer, is a big part of why we're having more earthquakes and tsunamis and volcano eruptions, and we don't nobody really seems to know that. It's like, oh, it's so far in the distance, but something like a huge earthquake that happened in Japan could be directly connected to our oceans getting warmer.
Well, everything's connected, and climate change is certainly one cog in the mechanics of how life and how nature works on this planet and in the universe in general. If we're to water things down to make it easy for people to digest, I would probably break the larger issues down into three groups. One of them, of course, being climate change, which within that framework encompasses not only the general accelerated warming trends of the planet, but also the acidification that's caused by the carbon dioxide that's thrown off into our atmosphere in much greater amounts due to human activity. And that's yet another facet of the climate change issue, or more specifically, the emissions issue. It's aerosol pollution, if you want to call it that. Yeah. The second category is the overconsumption of natural resources, and that's not just fish, but that's certainly part of it. And lastly is the pollution issue in terms of solids, in terms of things like plastic pollution. I'm not pointing fingers at the plastics industry per se, because it was that invention came out of a good thought. But why is it that human beings and industries use a material that's built to last 500 or more years in things that in our everyday lives we use for 30 seconds or half an hour and then throw away? It makes absolutely no sense, especially since most of those plastics are petroleum-based.
Yeah, and I'd have to add to that, like the fact that these companies that produce plastic are so stubborn and not wanting to make the switch to something that's more sustainable. And I was at the Santa Monica City Hall the day that the ban on plastic bags was passed, and there was people from the American Chemical Association there, and they were raising a big stink, and they were being nasty to all the activists in the room. And I'm like, well, why don't you go to the future? Because you're going to lose in the long run if you just stay stuck in this idea that we have to have disposable plastics, like in these bags and bottles and everything else. Like, why don't you get ahead of the curve and make money off of something that's going to be better for us? It's just they're really stuck in their ways.
Well, and that's the thing, is we're creatures of habit as human beings, and it's much easier to stay status quo in our minds than to try and be avant-garde thinkers. But the reality is, the innovators are the ones that not only create more jobs and even better economy for those businesses, but they're going to be the ones that end up reaping the lion's share of that industry's profits, because they'll be ahead of that curve. Right. And who doesn't want to be in the pole position in whatever industry we're talking about, even if we're just talking economics, with a environmental benefit to it. So it's, again, it's certainly not going to be easy, but consumers, if we don't happen to be the CEOs of companies such as this, or the decision makers in those companies, as consumers, we have to remember we have the ultimate vote in every single deliberation in our everyday lives. By deliberation, I mean our decisions. That's a vote. And if you decide to vote for something or buy something, more specifically, that is more environmentally conscious, even if it may not be perfect, that's a vote in the right direction. If you choose not to, if you choose to go status quo, then you're voting against progress. Some people may say that, the extremists may say that if you're doing that, then you're actually stealing from the communal chest. I don't like to be quite so derogatory or inflammatory, but it is true that we have to see our world as a communal bank account and stop eating away at the capital and start living off that interest. As a matter of fact, part of the Planet Fish mission and our partners is to start paying back that capital so that we have a larger bit of interest for our children to enjoy.
Oh, what a concept. Having clean air and clean water and clean food for our kids.
Well, I always try and relate it back to economics only because we just came out, or we're still coming out of an economic disaster, so to speak, for many people around the world. And it behooves us to think, or at least talk, in a way that most people can understand. One of the biggest downfalls when we talk about environmental problems is usually we end up, as concerned citizens, as scientists, et cetera, we end up talking over people's heads and get way too technical about things. And a lot of times we wrap ourselves up in our own language that really turns people off. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm about no-nonsense solutions, and let's just roll up our sleeves and get things done. Let's say it how it is. Let's see what we're dealing with here, and let's engage the world's people in creating those solutions, because it benefits everybody. That benefits industry, that benefits individuals, that benefits poor people, that benefits rich people, that benefits everybody.
So what would you recommend besides voting with your dollars? That's something that the average person can do to have an impact? Because I know people are stressed out, they don't have time, they don't have money these days. So what would you recommend besides voting with your pocketbook?
I can guarantee you, if people don't stop to listen and do something, they will definitely not have time, and they will definitely not have the money down the road. Like I said, it's about saving our own skins. It's not about saving the planet. The planet, as I'm sure you've heard many times before, will live on without us just fine. It's a matter of choosing whether we want to be part of that or not.
Exactly.
Or more specifically, whether we want our kids to be part of a future that encompasses all those things that we've taken for granted, that we'd love for them to be able to enjoy. And I, for one, although I don't have kids of my own, definitely want to see those future generations enjoy those things. I want to be able to take my nieces and nephews and my friends' kids on dives to be able to see a fireworks display of life and to be able to drink a healthy glass of water. And those things in our modern lives, when we say we don't have time, we don't want to invest in technologies and solutions, are just excuses, and we're fooling ourselves if we don't. So some things beyond just our everyday votes that we can do. And mind you, before I get off that topic for a second, in my everyday life, I live in an apartment in New York City, in Brooklyn Heights particularly. So I have a fairly reasonable footprint, but there are always a lot of things that I could do better, just like anybody else. And so I took that into consideration last year, and I used myself as an experiment, as an individual. How much money could I save by trying to do things right to lower my impact, in essence to respect the environment? And within a year, without trying even remotely hard, by doing things that are so simple, such no-brainers, by getting rid of vampire appliances, or at least putting switches on things like chargers and such that are plugged into the wall constantly, that suck out energy whether or not your mobile devices plugged into it, by turning off the lights when I'm not in those particular parts of the apartment, by doing all sorts of little things, CFLs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, without really changing. Yes.
I was going to say, people are always amazed at my utilities. I have a 2-bedroom apartment in Santa Monica, and my utilities run about $15, $20 a month. And people are always blown away by that. And I'm like, well, I turn things off, I unplug things, and I don't have the heat on unless I need it. I mean, I don't let myself freeze, but so if that's not a motivator to save some money, I don't know.
Oh my God! I mean, of course, you know, exactly. I mean, I have a 1-bedroom in New York, and I've saved in 1 year as an individual almost $2,000. So
wow.
I can imagine exponentially as a now maybe that means I'm a big waster. Who knows? But you know, you project that on a larger scale to a family. I mean, that's vacation right there. They could use that money to invest in the children's college fund, or take a vacation somewhere nice and warm, or what have you. I mean, it's money out the window. And oh yeah, by the way, you're also lowering your impact on the environment if you do those things.
We only have about 2 minutes left, so I would love for you to quickly talk about your documentary that you're working on right now, and then we'll have to schedule another interview because I have about 50 more questions for you. But
well, I'd be happy to answer all your questions in the next session. And in the meantime, I unfortunately I can't say much about it because we're right now in pre-production. We're rolling up our sleeves, so to speak. I think I've used that term several times this round. But we're about to go out on a worldwide expedition to visit some places, believe it or not, that have never been seen before underwater. And I'll precursor by saying that if you take everything that my grandfathers explored and all of the other pioneers of the ocean world have explored in the last 100 years of modern ocean exploration, we've explored less than 5% of the world's oceans. So for those aspiring oceanauts out there, or marine biologists, or ocean explorers, or filmmakers, there's a lot left out there to explore. And we're just now scratching the surface of our ocean world, or should I say, peeking under that blue carpet. But we're going to go on a multi-location worldwide expedition that will bring back not only a 3D IMAX, but also a feature film, and we'll back into a mini-series for television.
Wow, that sounds amazing. I can't wait to see it.
I can't wait to get wet. I'm much more comfortable underwater than I am on land.
Well, you were meant to be born into this family, I guess.
Well, I've been diving since my 4th birthday. I think everybody that's exposed to the ocean world falls in love with it in some way, shape, or form, whether it's actually diving or piloting a submersible or sailing. Or even just enjoying the sound, the soothing sound of lapping waves and watching dolphins jump and play, or having your kids build a sandcastle next to the ocean shores. It's a magical place. It's our one and only oasis in space. It's quite literally our life support system, and it's something that we need to remember to protect as the stewards of our planet.
Yes, we do. Thank you so much, and thanks for taking time out today. Good luck with the documentary, and we'll talk soon.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show, and I wish everyone a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you, Fabien. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So contact me with questions, mark me your favorite, and see you in 2 weeks. Take care.